Great. We're here with Benny Cruz, well-known musician and also educator, and this is part of the oral history project. A number of us in El Barrio are trying to put together, and we're doing selected interviews. And you're being interviewed for two reasons. One is your career as a musician and also as an educator. And maybe we should just start off, Benny, asking you, can you tell us about yourself, your family, and what brought your family and you to Detroit?
Sure. Well, this is back in the heyday of the mid-'60s, the civil rights movement and everything. My family we were migrant workers going from city to city, town to town, state to state during the seasons. And we had family up here that my dad's grandma, my grandma, he wanted to come and visit her, so we got here, and it so happened that he applied for a job at Great Lakes Steel over in Zug Island. And well, he got the job, and a temporary stay ended up into a lifelong visit to Michigan, I guess. So we came with that intent to leave and go back to the migrant fields and work, you know. But once my dad got the job here, and he stabilized the family life for us. He did send us to parochial school for a while. There were 6 of us, and it was really expensive, so we ended up going to DPS, Detroit Public Schools, and we all went through the DPS system except one sister who went to Holy Redeemer.
Okay.
And so I guess I was not born here in Detroit, in the Michigan area, but I pretty much lived my whole life, and I still live here.
Where were you born?
I was born in Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson, Arizona.
Right, and you know, the last memory I have of Tucson is just seen. I was in one of those station wagons. They had the rear seat facing backwards,
yeah,
you know. And I saw the city just getting smaller as we left, you know. But and I've always wanted to go back, but you know, Detroit I call my home in the metro area. But that was the reason we came to visit. But we stayed, and I'm glad we did, because it evolved into a different life for me than I think would have happened if I had stayed. We would have stayed migrant workers.
Well, your answer kind of leads to a couple other questions. Am I to assume that you were born in Arizona?
I was born in Arizona, right.
Was your family Mexicano, or they were Mexican Americans that had been going through the migrant?
Well, it was. It's interesting because my father was born in Satin, Texas,
Okay.
and but he was raised in Mexico,
okay.
So he was a U.S. citizen. But he met my mother, who was from Mexico, Juan Aldama, Zacatecas. Okay. So he met her. They got married, and they had the family and everything. So I guess I would be considered Mexican American. Mm-hmm. And as we grew up, it's really interesting that I had that background, but I grew up in Motown.
Yeah.
I listened to all kinds of music. You know, I used to listen to. I used to listen to rock and roll. I used to listen to, I loved Ted Nugent, Santana, but then I also loved Motown.
Yeah.
I loved the Smokey Robinson. I loved the Temptations and all that, you know.
So I'm assuming that affected your style later on.
It did, and it was the music itself brought life to me ever since I was young. I enjoyed listening to the different styles of music. And as I progressed in life, I started getting into other rhythms that were like salsa, merengue, cha-cha, mambo, all the different styles of Latin rhythms that made me want to become a musician. I began to love music at a young age.
Well, as being a fellow musician, I noted that your band during this heyday was acknowledged for being filling that niche of different Latin genres. At what point did you decide to do that consciously?
Well, it was kind of like a fluke thing. I remember the very first performance I did as a musician was back in 1976, and it was it was in at Holy Trinity, was for a little baptism. Someone had heard that we played, my brother and I, and here's the song that we first learned. La Bamba. And but we did it with a little bit of a rock flavor before even the movie came out with La Bamba.
And Los Lobos.
Yeah, so we put a little rock flavor to it, and we were hooked on that. And after that, we began getting little performances here and there. You know.
How old were you, man?
Oh, I was 16 back then.
Okay, so you were a teenager.
I was a teenager. My first, I guess, experience playing music was when I was about 12. My mother and dad, they pitched in some money and they bought me a Sunburst a guitar. I think it was a Teisco. It was a kind of cheap guitar, but it was to me it was a great thing, and I wore it out. And I kept that guitar probably for about 40 years.
For real?
Yeah, and I had it. It didn't work anymore, but I had it as a keepsake just to remember. Whenever I got down and out, you know, I remember this is what brought me to where I am now. Little by little, I pieced my life together. But that was an experience. So then we saw that as a fluke thing. You know, we played a little rock and roll at a Hispanic function. So we started doing other little things, and before you know it, we're doing a little rock beat, the Santana, you know, and you got to change your ways, baby. So we were doing that. We liked that. The people that we were playing for liked it, and then before you know, we're playing at festivals. You know, they used to have festivals downtown in Detroit. Yeah, and all over in Pontiac and all that. So just little by little, we fell into that little niche. And then before you know it, corporate America started calling because they wanted a Latin band for a certain function, but they also wanted a variety because not everyone knew and understood the music. So we became ambassadors, and I said, well, you know, what's a good marketing tool? Using a good name as a sub-name to the band. We were called Benny Cruz y La Buena Vida. But then I said, well, we'll call ourselves the ambassadors of music, in parentheses. And I used that tagline for years. And it got a lot of doors open for me because of the ambassadors of Latin music, but then also I would put like, and we do this. And that was an exciting time, and I think that's what kept my career going for so many years. I mean, you're talking over 40 years that I've been playing, when you really add all the numbers up. Yeah, so you know, I've been doing it for a long time, but I enjoy it, you know, and that's what music is all about.
So I'm assuming implicit in what you were saying is that then you will consciously play rock for the American crowds, the non-Latin crowds, or?
Well, it was a mixture because see, even though we're at like say a primarily Hispanic quinceañera or wedding, we would go in and throw American songs. We'd do this one. I got sunshine on a cloudy day. So we do stuff like that, and people loved it because that's what was hitting at the time, or they had just hit, you know. So it was just fun, you know. And as I got older, I just started learning other little songs. You had songs from Juanes, you know. You had songs by Carlos Vives, musicians that were of that epic, of that time, that era. And back in the 70s, I used to do a lot of Jose. Y lo pasado, stuff like that. And it crossed over into the American audience when I did the American, and it was just, I was the ambassador of Latin music, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, within the Latino community, there's diversity in music, and I remember very vividly, particularly during the St. Stephen's days, that a lot of Puerto Rican dances would be held, and you were part of the repertoire. And you were one of the few Mexican-American bands that Puerto Rican audiences would seek out for their performances. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, what happened was, we, like I said, I just love to play different styles. And when I was going to college, for my bachelor's in Chicano Bruco Studies at Wayne State, I met a Puerto Rican family, the LeBron family.
Oh, okay.
And Carmen Yolanda and her sisters and the parents, they welcomed me to their home. And I had never had that experience with a Puerto Rican family. I learned to eat the cuisine but they turned me on to albums and songs of the Fania All Stars, and there was a band called the LeBron Brothers in Puerto Rico
And
years
the
ago.
LeBron brothers, do you know?
I don't know
Are
their
they
history.
family?
They are family?
Yeah, they're a family. Very famous salsa group.
Yeah, well, I know. Yeah, so I heard the music, and Yolandita Monge, I think she was back in those days. So I started liking that style of music, and so I just little by little just started including a little merengue here, merengue, and I did salsa my way.
Yeah.
But and I think the people at the time, the different cultures that weren't Mexican and that I was trying to play their music, they appreciated the effort because it was just something that I did from the heart, and I didn't do it to try to replace any other that style of music, but I just did it from the heart, and I think that's what touched a lot of people. The guy is at least trying, and he's and
I remember at one time you had a female singer, and then the repertoire included quite a bit of Gloria Estefan's music too.
Well, at the time, that's when Gloria had just come out with a new album, Mi Tierra, I think it was called. And, it just, it was the right time to add a singer. And she was very good, Alejandra Maldonado. And over the years, we tried to be as consistent as we could, staying with the same musicians. I did change quite a few bass players, but Benny Burgos was my mainstay for many years, and he was a heck of a bass player.
Puerto Rican
Benny, yeah. I guess that was another thing. I integrated the group.
Yeah.
I
remember Javier Barrios who plays in my band was playing in your band way back when.
Right. Well, Javier, I knew him since he was a little kid when the Barrios family was started, and him and his brother Ricky, we were about the same age. Ricky and I. He passed away, but anyway. I just started getting more friendly with Javier, and he started developing as a good musician, percussionist, and we just kind of fell in there, like that. And that was the great part of it. But the mainstay in the band has been my brother Mauro. He's been with me forever.
Fantastic guitarist.
Yeah, he'll one day reflect back on his life and see all the things he did. He doesn't really, he's very modest,
Yeah, I know.
But he's a very good guitarist, and I've never really worked with anybody else but him.
Yeah.
And then eventually I brought my sons in on percussion, and that was a new beginning of the Buena Vida through like the mid-90s till a few years ago. But through all that time, I kept the diversity in there. And that was what kept me going. Even now that I've been on a little bit of hiatus from the band, but because of my other career. But anyway, I have the intentions of going back and playing again, because I'm still young at heart, and there's a need for the music that I play.
You talked about your other career, and a lot of people may not realize you've been principal of a couple schools, and tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, as I said, music was my life for many years, but the thing was that I myself started seeing that, hey, I'm like a boxer. Boxer can fight for so many years, and after a while, he becomes a trainer. He's not that boxer. He's not that, he has to find something else to do. So in my mid-30s, a few years ago, I said to myself, I think I got to find a career that's going to last, or that I can really work at.
Make some money.
Make some money. So anyway, I went back into education, and I got my teaching certificate back in '97. And I started teaching. And as I taught the music to the kids, I enjoyed it very much. I did it for like 10 years, actually, before I got certified, through the time I got certified and on. So I did it for 10 years as a music teacher, and I loved every minute of it. I educated hundreds of kids who nowadays come and stop me at the mall, stop me on the street, and say, hey, you were my teacher, and so on. So that, to me, it makes me feel good. But the main thing was that as I got to that level, I went back and got a master's in education because I wanted to know more, to show more, to embark into a bigger picture. And as I got that master's degree, I said, there's much more I can do aside from just the music level, that I can help all these people, all these kids, the parents and the students. And so I ended up going back to get another master's in education as an education specialist, and that qualified for me to be a principal. So before you know it, I'm an assistant principal.
At what schools?
I was at Hope of Detroit Academy, charter school in Detroit, and then after that I went to Webster, which is the one of the, I guess the main schools at the time in Southwest Detroit, and it was the first school to have a Hispanic principal, which is Panchito, or Mr. Frank Lozano.
Which, interesting enough, he also was a musician too.
That's right.
Yeah,
Well, I'll share a little bit about Panchito. Is that back in '90, I was kind of '87. I was struggling as a musician. I didn't know what to do. I had a degree in music, but it wasn't a teaching certificate. And I went to him. I said, "Can you hook me up with a job?" And he said, "You gotta get your teaching certificate, and I might be able to do something." But he encouraged me. He gave me a lot of words of wisdom. And I saw a plaque that said he was the first principal, Hispanic principal. And I said, that's a milestone, and I wanted to be part of that legacy. That I, from a musician to administrator, to someone that kept his roots, but that also expanded his education to be able to come back and help other people. That was my main goal all along, and I was fortunate enough to do that. After Webster, I became the principal of Webster. And then after that, I went back to Hope of Detroit. They hired me back as their principal. And then I went back and stayed there. And then I ended up at Cesar Chavez about a year ago. But I had some health issues. But I'm on the rebound. But in the meantime, I said to myself, okay, I'm a principal, but what else do I want to do? What else can I do? I'm embarking this big picture now with all these students in one school. The next level was a superintendent. So I started in 2005 my doctorate program at Wayne State for bilingual education. And I'm just about done. I just have to do my dissertation. So, every step of the way that I got there, it got me thinking about 1967 when we got here.
Well, that's the year you got here.
Yeah, and how from a migrant worker, a son of a migrant worker, to the principal of a school, to one day hopefully a superintendent or whatever, or university professor. That's another goal. But that whole lifespan was such a wonderful experience. I don't regret anything. Some things I do regret in life, but that was probably the most exciting time. Just have my lows, my ups, my downs, my ups and downs, but ultimately, making it in life. It was great.
You are well known in the community and have been so for a couple decades. And when I say that, I think of the Unity in the Community festivals for a short period of time. You were a staff member at the Youth Center, Latino Outreach. You were
La Casa?
La Casa. Yeah. It's gone through a couple name changes.
Right.
Yeah, so La Casa. Then you also were choir director at
St. Stephen's.
St. Stephen's, but also San Gabriel. Were you at the same? No, or you?
Well, I was at Holy Redeemer as the music teacher and the choir director for the youth at the school.
So those are other aspects of. We've talked about your life as a musician, as an educator, but there's that other piece. I'm assuming where you blended the two in a number of community efforts, and both religious and just secular. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the one thing that I did mention, I started playing music around 12 years old. I started the church choir at St. Anne's.
Okay.
The matriarch of all churches here. So I started my music career there, in the choir, and because I used to love the blending of the voices. I used to love the organ. They have this organ that just sounds great through the whole church, and I ended up into playing organ and the keyboard. But that experience as a youth, to this day stays with me, because the spiritual and the reality has to meet somewhere, because if you get too far from one or the other, there's no balance. And you're an extremist in terms of liberalism over here, what you're doing with life, or you might be an extremist with the religion. But that balance, you have to find it, and I found it where I feel very comfortable, with life. Things have gone pretty good, but I always wanted to help people, and through the church you're helping people, guiding them, comforting them, things like that. But also in life, you help people. The festivals that we had, Unity in the Community, and working for Casa de Unidad, they were all community agencies. I worked for many years as a community advocate, and because there was a need for that. I was trying to not have people go through the things I went through. Especially one of the hard challenges I had was when I came here, there was no bilingual education. So I'm stuck in a all English class, and I had to fend for myself. At home they spoke Spanish. So I worked hard, and that was always a driving force too, to try to make sure that they wouldn't pigeonhole me and stereotype me. He's just a migrant worker, he's uneducated, he doesn't know. And that always stayed in my mind, and I always try to encourage people, be the best you can be, do what you can, and work hard at it. Nothing's gonna fall on your lap if you don't. It's just, a career is not just gonna fall on your lap. You're not gonna win $1 million unless it's your call, you're lucky and you play. But if you don't play the game, you're not gonna win. Same thing in life. If you don't study, if you don't educate yourself, chances are that you're gonna struggle. Especially nowadays with the recession that we're in, the people that are really struggling are a lot of the general labor people that I want to make sure that at least they get that opportunity to move up and try to do something better. That's what I was all about all those years, and thank God I know that in my heart I did a lot, and I can still do more with the goals that I still have in mind. But through all those years, I can never say that I can't say that I didn't do my best to try to help other people. That's what helped me with everything in life, the music career, the education career, because you make friends throughout I have lifelong friends that I've known since I was 10 years old, that now are executives of companies or that have opportunities available for me and for people that I send them, and we all network together. Yeah. Especially with this whole internet thing, it's just a wonderful thing to have, and so there's so much available, so many things that can be done now that we had back then. But a lot back then was done just handshakes, personal appearances, talking to people, and now it's all through internet, email, which is okay, but that personal one-on-one, I think, needs to come back somehow.
Yeah, I understand. Well, kind of segueing from your reflections about your own experience these past few decades in both education and music, what reflections do you have, and if any additional ones, on the state of affairs for music and education, if you were to step back? I mean, you were a player in the community in both senses.
Right.
What are some of kind of the highlights about the state of affairs for both music and education in this Latino community?
Well, I see that there's a vibrancy in the want of a musician. They want to have that hit. They want to be known by people, and they want to make the money, obviously, right? But the one thing that I find is that there's too much of the electronic component being grabbed onto. The actually, playing the music, the live music, needs to come back more. There needs to be a renaissance of that, because you can cut and paste rhythms and beats and chords and all that, yes, and make a great record. but it's not the same. It's not. They don't have that experience of actually playing it or feeling it. The groove is all track. It's a track, and the electronic stuff. Because I'm a professional musician and I play, and I took years of practicing and putting my time into it. I think that music is being watered down too much. It's not as flowing as it used to be, and the lyrics and the content is not the same as it was in the years past. So I think that needs to come back somehow. I was at a conference about a few weeks ago where the youth and the elders got together, kind of, and I mentioned that to them that you can make a blend of the new hip hop or the rap, but it doesn't always have to be negative. Turn it around, make it better, make it positive, because what we need is to have that positive stimulation. It's not all that bad in life, but if you keep hounding on it, and throwing all that out there negative, that's got to change. But on the positive side of music is that you have the availability as a composer, for example, to if you know how to read music and stuff, you can compose a whole orchestra, a symphony, or you can compose a whole piece of music using one keyboard, through MIDI and all the electronics. But if you put the thought into it when you compose, I do that a lot.
It's a shortcut in terms of time.
Yeah, in terms of time and getting musicians. But what will happen is you put all that music in the computer and they'll print it out. And when you want to go do a live show, you just hire a band or get musicians together and they got the charts. But they can't read the charts if they don't learn how to learn the music. You can't get a song nowadays played by many musicians because there aren't as many out there to play and read. So that's music right now is in a stage where it's got to revamp itself. Some of the old, some of the new, put it all together and come out with a good product. And a lot of people are doing that, but some are really cheating and just cutting and pasting, looping and all that, which is, I can do that, but I don't want to do that. I want the creativity to come out. Yeah. Now on the education end, that ties in what I was talking about. We need more musicians out there that want to learn the trade. I always tell people, have a backup plan. If you want to be a musician, especially, have a backup plan, because unless you get lucky, I was lucky enough to be like in the middle of the pack. I had my good points, my bad points, but I was, I guess financially it was good for me at the time, what I was doing. And I know a lot of musicians and this is like 2000s, 2010 and above, that they're still making $40, $50, and that's what I used to make 40 years ago per night. That's got to change. And the only way that changes is if you educate yourself better. And if you just play by ear, that's what you're going to make even 20 years from now. And $40 a night 40 years ago is probably maybe $100 now. But they're only making 40, so
I understand.
They're losing the equity in their whatever they're making. But so the education part and the music part go in sync if you want to be a musician. But putting the music aside, and education in general, in something, a career you want to be in, something you're interested in, is a far better cry than sitting at home wondering how am I going to pay my bill next. Being proactive. What am I going to do? Because I was in that position before, and I was proactive, and I went and got a teaching certificate. And after that, my life changed and everything went well. But it was the education. And during recession, they rarely, depending on the career, but if it's in education, you're pretty well okay. You're pretty much set, unless they totally cut back and there's not enough students or whatever. But there's always openings. There were always openings for careers in education. You just have to plan it out, map it out, forecast. I knew back in the mid-'90s that there was a need for music teachers. That's why I went and got my certificate. Sure enough, I had the pick of the litter, I guess, in terms of where I wanted to teach. I went to literally 10, 12 schools, and they all wanted to hire me because there weren't musicians that were qualified because they couldn't read, they didn't have a degree, they didn't have. So that helped me out. Now with the computer technology, same thing. You know, whatever you got to do, you just educate yourself.
Any additional reflections beyond what you've already shared, personal, musical?
Well, you know, one of the things I do want to emphasize, you know, music is a kind of glamorous life. You know, I remember playing like at the Ritz-Carlton. I remember playing at the Phoenix Center in Pontiac. You know, backstage they have buffets for the band. They have alcohol, beverages, you know, and sometimes they have substances that you're not supposed to really have. I was never really a lot into it, but I've seen a lot of my musician friends, and even myself, participate in some things that we shouldn't have. That's the one, I guess, advice that I would give musicians is to be selective, be careful, is to not fall into a rut. The one thing that does go away as a musician is your popularity. You know, as you get older, or as the music changes or what have you, either you stay with the times or you have to know when to step back, and prepare yourself. But one way not to do is get involved in using alcohol and drugs and stuff, because what that does is it shortens your life, for one. And it ruins your career because as a musician you're not as good, not as sharp, and things like that. So the one lifelong lesson that I can share with people is be careful, don't do drugs, you know, and things like that. Educate yourself, and just keep that dream alive by just doing the best you can at whatever you do. You know, educating other kids, educating yourself. In performances, practice, and whatever else you do, read the books and understand more. So, in a nutshell, life can be good if you work hard at it, and never let anyone tell you that you can't do something. You know.
Well, kind of probably the last question in this set of questions, and this being should have dated. We're October 15th. 2011. From this point on, what goals do you have? You did kind of allude to you thinking about that.
Well, one of the things that I want to do is definitely finish my dissertation in bilingual education, and that's been my goal since 2005. And once I finish that up, I do want to hopefully get into a professorship at a university, dealing with bilingual education, maybe something dealing with bilingual education, music, history of music, because I do want to research music, how it's evolved. You know, I know a little bit about the different styles, but how they've all come together. That's one thing I have a dream about, but you know, that's to be continued.
Do you have any questions, Aaron, that you want to ask? I'm happy to ask.
So what do you think are like the biggest ways being a musician or being an educator have changed, like from when you started to now?
The things that have changed the most? Okay. The education that in America, I sad to say, over the years, I mentioned earlier about the experiences I had in grade school, elementary, and all that. And as I reflect on my last few years as a principal, it was very difficult for me to convince the board of directors at the schools I was at, especially one school, that we need to embrace the bilingual because of the population that we serve. And there was a little tension to bring in those programs. And if you look across America, the Hispanic community is quite large now, and the education piece has not caught up to the growth in the Hispanic population. And I think that what needs to happen is more bilingual education training for the teachers, more importance put on the vocabulary, the language, and the barriers that cause that language problem of learning. And also, there has to be an emphasis on parent or parental involvement, which is very minimal in the Hispanic community. And that's one of the goals that I wanted to strengthen as I got into education more and more. And so that even the people that are Hispanic that I guess have been successful with the language and so on, don't never forget where you came from. I've seen a lot of educators that come from a Hispanic background that struggle when they're younger, but then they become educators, and they dominate the language, but they forgot where they came from, and they don't cater to the students that they need to cater to and help them out. And that's one of my goals and challenges, is to be able to spread the message, help everyone, help each other out, make it stronger, make it better. And I think there are a lot of people like myself that feel the same way on the education level, that we need to expand the role of the bilingual teacher and the bilingual piece, so that we graduate students that are not at 8th grade level, 7th grade level. We need kids that have first, second year college level abilities, and that'll accentuate the growth that the Hispanic community is having by sharing with the world that, hey, we have many talented educated students, and not so much the proverbial 8, 10, 12, 14, 30, 40% dropout rate. We got to stop those numbers, and that's what my goal is within the next few years of my lifespan, is to try to kind of find a way to share with the people, what we need to do for our kids. Yeah.
Any other?
Did you find that there was the same kind of tension with arts in schools as there was in bilingual education? There's always, when budgets get tight,
Yeah.
arts are the first thing
Right.
to go to usually.
Well, I know one thing, that at the school I was at, teaching music, because of I want to say the importance, because I felt that was important in the school, because of the importance of what I was doing with the kids. I was not just teaching them music, but I was teaching them language skills. So I combined the two. I would teach them songs, phonemic awareness. I would teach them songs about life. I would teach them songs of how to mathematically decipher a song, how to work math problems out. So all those things I was incorporating. So I became a valuable asset because I did my research. I would go to the classrooms and talk to the teachers. What are you guys doing this week? So I would try to incorporate science, math, all the different subjects into what I was doing. So that kind of made me an important piece, as opposed to, oh, he's just the piano teacher, he's just the music teacher, we don't need him, And I think that there has to be more of a mixture between the academic world and the music world, to kind of combine a little metamorphosis to be able to put more value on that teacher, and music teachers can't just say, oh, they're going to cut me because I'm just a music teacher. You have to make yourself valuable, and I was fortunate never to get cut, but I know musicians that were cut, and I, as a principal, was close to having to cut people. But because I had that background and the importance of it, of having a music program, art program, gym program, I always tried to make sure that I funneled my funds to a way where I would have enough to cover that teacher. Maybe cut back on this, cut back on that, and have that. So I never had to lay anybody off. I was close, but I always try to work it out. And I think that's another thing. Administration and the arts have to blend together, because a kid going to class all day, every day, with no distraction, I mean, no different type of routine. It's not a good thing. You know, it's like working at a job, doing the same thing over and over and over, never having the opportunity to do something else. It gets mundane, monotonous, and that's why you get dropout rates and so on. You know, problematic kids, behavioral. So there's a lot of things that I could talk forever and write. I'm gonna write a book.
Oh, so that's another one of your
That's
goals.
another goal.
That's about it, man. Well, I want to thank you, Benny, for agreeing to do this interview. Hopefully, we'll in coming period bring you back to maybe reflect along with some other people on other aspects of the community, maybe in a group interview. We want to also thank Compas and Ismael Duran for providing us the facility here on October 15th, 2011. Gracias.
All right, thank you.
Plays out a little bit.
Yeah.